I'm like a god in human clothing! Lightning bolts shoot from my fingertips!
Hi everyone, welcome to Priority Holder, and today we'll be playing Budget, 0 Rares Burn in the Timeless format. So Timeless is an expensive format, like all the strongest cards cost like tons of rares and mythics, and it can be sort of unapproachable for that reason. So I wanted to try and showcase an entry point that I consider, very, very strong, that also doesn't use any rare wild cards. And the reason that's possible is because Lightning Bolt was recently downshifted to uncommon. So everything is just commons and uncommons here. And this is a classic magic archetype that uses aggressive creatures and burn spells to chip in tons of early damage. So the thing that really unlocks this deck is the fact we just got Fireblast. So you can cast it for free by sacrificing 2 mountains and it deals 4 damage to any target. So this helps this be super explosive and have a ton of turn 3 kills. So let's jump into some games. Alright, this is a pretty great hand. Monastery Swiftspear is like our strongest creature in this deck, and this honestly a little creature heavy. Would love a couple more burn spells, but it still seems too good to mulligan. Alright, red-blue fetch, and the opponent passes. I'm never quite sure what to do in these situations. Do you lead with Swiftspear and start chipping in damage, or do you play the summoning sick ones first and then Swiftspears later on, So I decided to go with the summoning sick one. We'll see if the opponent has a response. Alright, it's a blue-green surveil, which actually worries me a bit because, we're on the draw against what could be a show and tell deck. But now that I see blue-red and then the fact that they surveil a Ragavan, I'm feeling a lot better. It's some sort of maybe aggro or mid-range deck that's not combo, so we'll have a little bit of breathing room. So what do we do next? I decided to throw out a Swiftspear since we've picked up some burn, but the opponent has an answer. They're going to minor misstep the Swiftspear. Was not expecting that, but the opponent's prepared for the aggro matchup, so going to just play our other well, I was going to play it, but then I'm like, wait a second, do I want to get Dragon's Rage Channeler out there? Just so, because we might be able to hit Delirium next turn, and then all of a sudden it's like a 3/3 flyer, so it has pretty good upside. So I decided to play Chandler, because once again, Swiftspear can rush out there with haste later on. So we're going to crash with Harrier and see what the opponent has. And as the opponent thinks about what to do, it looks like it's a Tarmogoyf. I'll go ahead and link a Teamer deck of my own that's like Snapcasters, like a tempo deck. So now, second mountain was a clutch draw. So what I'm doing here is checking the graveyard for instants, because you got to do that against Lurgoyfs because it's state-based action. You just got to be careful. So it does turn out that there's an instant in the graveyard. So I'm going to lead with Swiftspear so we get the prowess trigger, and then Fireblast the Goyf. Now it's important we do that before the Chain Lightnings because there's no sorceries currently in the graveyard. So we're going to Fireblast the Goyf down, which is going to clear the way for everything. Creature in the graveyard's amazing because it means we're almost to Delirium with Dragon's Rage Channeler. In fact, we will hit it off the Chain Lightning. So this is what I was talking about, the upside of getting Dragon's Rage Channeler in play. I'm going to ditch Monstrous Rage, hopefully to find some direct burn. The opponent's in massive trouble here, and this is the power of this deck. This is turn 3, us on the draw, and we're on the cusp of killing him right here. So we're going to put the opponent all the way down to 2 with a Boltwave on top and a Barbarian Ring in play and multiple lethal threats, So that's just the strength of this deck. Alright, so opponent's going to ponder, and that's it. And that's also the power of Fireblast. It is just a cracked card. So next hand looks pretty good. Once again, a little light on the burn, and faced with the decision of, well, we'll have to see. The opponent's going to take some of our decisions away from us. So they're going to grief us turn 1, and I'll be curious to see what they take from us. Now, I've played many grief decks. I love scam decks, so I'll go ahead and link one of mine right here. It's very tough to be the scam player facing the aggro deck because your thought seizes and griefs are really good against combo and really not good against aggro. So let's see what the opponent's follow-up is. And they're going to thought seizes. So it's you sort of have to use the tools at your disposal, but it just doesn't feel great using thought seize against a burn deck, So going to play Harrier and going to play Mishra's Bauble. You have to be careful against black decks. You can either play around Bowmasters or or targeted discard. So as the Bauble trigger goes off, if you enjoy seeing people's life totals go to 0, please shrieking mog the like button. So, all right. So the opponent found a strip mine, and they're going to fatal push our creatures. So we're set back pretty far as it stands. And the opponent chose not to strip mine us, so which is really good because that means we can fire off Amped Raptor and hopefully get right back in this game. Alright, let's see what we hit. Alright, so not an amazing hit. Monstrous Rage. Like, we can put like a monster roll on the Amped Raptor, but it doesn't have haste, you know, so we're not getting that extra damage in. Now, the nice thing is that it has first strike, so if they try and play that lifelinker in hand, like, they're gonna be in trouble. Alright, so the opponent is getting wrecked by their colorless lands right here, which is, you know, a risk you take running them. I tend to just run strip mines and like my scam decks, you know, so Ancient Tomb, like, I guess if it's more of a mid-rangey Shieldred One Ring version, then yeah, you want Ancient Tombs. So going to just crash in. We're almost have active Barbarian Ring, and so what I'm going to do is just Boltwave them here. Now the thing is, the opponent runs strip mines, so I'm going to just hold on to the Barbarian Ring for now. And let's say the opponent plays and tries to activate a strip mine, we can just Fireblast them. Alright, so they're actually going to put an opposition agent in play, which does nothing against us. This is a budget deck, we don't have any fetches, so let's see if they can do anything else. Alright, so they're going to duress us. So it's a sort of now or use it or lose it moment for the Fireblast. So I'm trying to think, is it worth it to just dome them? And I think it is, considering their opposition agent can't block the Amped Raptor because of the first strike. So they're going to duress us, and our Barbarian Ring is safe in hand. So, and then we draw a Fireblast, which is excellent. So we're going to crash with the Amped Raptor. And I don't know if they're just soaking up damage, trying to stay out of bolt range. You know, like, they're in a really tough spot right here. Like, they can't really use their Ancient Tomb. They don't have, like, a castable threat, you know, so... And yeah, we have exact lethal right here. So we can crash them with the Amped Raptor and then hit them with Barbarian Ring. So I chose to put 2 Barbarian Rings in this deck. Like, it does sometimes, you know, betray you because of Fireblast, but you could see in this instance it's super strong to have some like extra burn from your mana base, you know. So I think I like having 2 Barbarian Rings in there, so you still have plenty of mountains. Alright, so the opponent passes and does nothing. And at first I'm like, wait, like, at first I didn't realize they even went first because of what happened. So they're passing in, so I'm like, all right, they must be setting a reanimation target. And then we see an Iona hit the graveyard. So if that gets into play, like off reanimate, then we are like in serious trouble. Like, we basically instantly lose. So the opponent must have like a tough mulligan, and maybe they didn't have a discard outlet or something. So I'm trying to shell out as much damage as possible, get as much threats into play. So we definitely don't want the extra land. We get 2 Surveils off the Dragon's Rage Channelers. We already have a Monstrous Rage, so I mean, I guess we could put monster rolls on each of them. So I'm bracing for impact here, like, alright, is it just going to be reanimate Iona? But they're actually going to discard to hand size, which is Ardent. So they kept a speculative hand that must have been like just 1 mana source away. Like, I guarantee they have like multiple like reanimates and stuff in hand, and they're just like, they just needed 1 land to go off, and they're not really going to get there. So I'm deciding this Surveil right here, but the thing is, like, they've given us too much time at this point. So trying to figure out like maximum damage, and like, wait a second, I can leave Monstrous Rage on top because that's like a fine hit with a Amped Raptor. You can do stuff like that sometimes, like with the Surveils, you could set up your Amped Raptor hits. So there's the land they've been looking for. But it's going to be a tap land, and now like even reanimate won't be like enough. They're going to take way too much damage from us right now, so they won't have like sufficient life to bring back Arden plus Iona, you know, for example. So the opponent's gonna pack it in. We're on to the next one. Another choice between Harrier and Dragon's Rage Channeler. Really not sure what to do. I think that was a mistake. I think I should have put Harrier out there first, and then we could have gotten at least 1 Surveil off the Channeler if we did it turn 2. Because right now we're not getting any Surveils. No, they're just going to Fatal Push it. Alright, so Mishra's Bauble. So I chose to include Monstrous Rages. Like, there's a lot of upside for them with like trampling over stuff, and like it can help you really make better use of your creatures. But in the removal heavy matchups, which this one might be, then they're like extremely risky, because if you're getting blown up by like Orcish Bowmasters or Lightning Bolts, then the Monstrous Rages look really, really bad. Alright, so the opponent's going to Molten Collapse our creature and play a Mishra's Bauble. So this is a removal heavy matchup, which means the Monstrous Rages are just not as good. So, alright, so we get a Harrier, just going to slam it and pass to the opponent. Alright, so we have to see. So it turns out we're facing a Jund deck. Alright, and it's a Ren and 6. And I make like a horrible mistake right here. So I'm like looking to see if there's any lands, and I just let this through. We could have saved it with the Monstrous Rage. I think I was tunnel visioned on like killing it with the bolt. The thing is, the monster would have saved us from the Ren and 6 damage, and then could have like, anyway, so that was just like a horrific mistake, because I think I wasn't thinking of Monstrous Rage as a defensive pump spell, which it can sort of get there. So anyway, things start going really bad after that mistake right there, because they're going to Ragavan into our Amped Raptor. Now, it didn't come from their hand. They don't get the Cascade off the Amped Raptor, but the first striker is tough, and then they're chasing it with the Strip Mine right there. And so here's another sort of use it or lose it situation with the Fireblast. I decide like we can't Fireblast at this point. Like, we're just not close enough. All right, so there's a Swiftspear, which could maybe get there. So this would have been an entirely different game. You know, maybe they had another Fatal Push, you know, who knows. But if we saved it from the Ren and 6 and were able to just attack in and like pressure them a bunch more, they may not have felt so comfortable to dash out Ragavan, and like, you know, maybe we could have actually punched in for some more damage. So this is definitely user error on my part, but it's still a learning experience to see how it unfolds. So the opponent's going to crash in. I've dabbled in Jund a few times. I had to still revisit it and see where it's going. So I'm still fighting the good fight. The thing is, like, we're a very explosive deck. Like, if we draw the right sequence of like Fireblast and like burn spells, like we could still get them, especially if they get a little careless with their like fetch shock mana base. So decide to attack with Swiftspear here, because we can potentially punch a ton of damage. So the opponent decides to trade off, and unfortunately we are like just short of getting the toughness high enough to survive this. They're gonna, you know, trade exactly, and we chunk in for some damage, and I'm going to Mishra's Bauble at this point. So we draw the card safe from Bowmasters, but Bowmasters is a huge problem for us. Alright, so they also have Tarmogoyf. So this one got away from us, but it's a good learning experience, you know, like you can use Monstrous Rage defensively in some situations. And this is also another learning moment, you know, Chain Lightning isn't just a sorcery speed deal 3, the opponent can reflect it back at you. So they decided not to even cast the Bowmasters and just Chain Lightning us back. So I think that's something to pay attention to, guys. I'm new to Chain Lightning because I'm used to like bolts and bolt waves and stuff like that. So have to remember the opponent can reflect it back at you. So we're basically at the point of no return, and yeah, we're just going to move on from this game and try in the next one. So this hand, this one's tough. I thought about it for a while, but I figured with 2 Mishra's Bauble draws, like we can probably get there, especially how strong Amped Raptor is. So gonna play Mountain, gonna play double Mishra's Bauble, and there is some like strategy as to like when to use the Mishra's Baubles and like what cards you want to see. All right, so we see a Grief on the other side of the battlefield. So gonna just Chain Lightning them just to use our mana efficiently and set an upkeep stop for their Mishra's Bauble, because I'm gonna let them draw their card first and then just see what their next card is, and just not let them like stifle it or anything crazy like that. So we're gonna get some information, and it's a Saint Elenda. Okay, so this is not necessarily like a scam deck. This might be like a, what's it called, like a Spy Belcher deck, you know, because sometimes they run like Saint Elenda or Reanimate is like one of the things. So they're going to just grief us right here and take an Amped Raptor, and they play a fetch land. Okay, so we have another Bauble draw and miss the Mountain. So that's the risk of keeping that hand. Fortunate for us, we have a very low curve. You know, it's almost all 1 mana spells in our deck. So we're going to put Greasewrench Goblin on the stack. The opponent's going to surveil away a Thoughtseize. And don't really love how this is playing out right now. But, thankfully, the opponent doesn't have the access to the Saint Elenda anymore. Alright, they're going to Thoughtseize themselves to put an Atrax in the graveyard. And then they're going to reanimate our Amped Raptor and just concede. So they would have died from our burn if they reanimated Atraxa. So they were just showing us what they had. Like, it's just a horrible matchup for them, and moving on to the next one. So, Alright, mountain from the opponent. Could be the mirror match. And then when I see a second mountain come into play and they don't play anything, that's when I'm like, oh crap. That means it's the Tybalt's Trickery deck. If you see like green and or red mana and like nothing going on the first couple turns, that's what's going on. So this is me, like, the hesitation there is because I'm realizing what deck I'm facing. And we might just be dead on their turn 3, but I'm trying to still get as much damage flowing as possible. Hopefully set up a turn 3 kill if they don't have it. But they always have it for some reason. So the way this works, they're going to Violent Outburst into Tybalt's Trickery. The Trickery will counter the Violent Outburst and then basically cascade into a huge threat, which is basically always like an Emrakul. So now, because it counts as cast, they are getting the extra turn right here, so we don't even get to try and like attack through and Fireblast and get fancy. So moving on, and that's just part of what's going on in Timeless. So gonna lead with Swiftspear right here and crash in for some damage and see what the opponent has in store. All right, blue-green shock, Delighted Halfling. Another Swiftspear is really, really nice. So we only have 2 mana to spend, so I'm trying to think carefully about how to do this. Decide to go Swiftspear and just to Chain Lightning the Halfling. We want to just like reduce their mana. This is like the Bolt the Bird philosophy right here, because it also might be fixing them for colorless. Like there might be like some Eldrazi's coming down with Halfling, you know. So going to chunk in for some damage and see what the opponent has on their turn 2. All right, Shifting Woodland and Springheart Nantuko. So this might be like a Nadu deck because we now have Lightning Greaves in the format. Unfortunately for the opponent, we've drawn like an absolutely incredible hand, like an unbeatable hand. So this could be a turn 3 kill right here. So we're going to play our third Swiftspear, crash in, see if the opponent blocks. Even if they do, doesn't matter, because if they blocked, we just Monstrous Rage whatever one they blocked. It's going to set off all 3 prowess triggers, and then before damage, we're going to Fire Blast them to the dome for just some like massive overkill on turn 3. And so, I mean, this is a 0 rares deck that can execute turn 3 kills with regularity, you know. So like, I feel really confident in this budget deck right here. In fact, as far as upgrades, I'd maybe only take out the Harriers and put in some Ragavans. You know, like I wouldn't really change that much. Like it. As far as like burn, like this is what you want to be doing, is fire blasting fools. So I'm gonna crash them with Swiftspear, and then wait in case they have like turn 1 discard. I'm going to Mishra's Bauble on their turn so that we don't draw it till our turn. I'm not really worried about Bowmasters. Like they could Dark Ritual Bowmasters maybe. So Ancient Tomb into Chalice the Void on their turn 1. So this is really unfortunate for us. Like I said, almost all of our spells cost 1 mana. We have some Amped Raptors and we have some Fireblast. Otherwise, everything costs 1. So we are locked out. And I'm a frequent Chalice of the Void player right here, so I'll go ahead and link some Chalice of the Void decks right now. Now, I know this is getting countered, but it does trigger prowess on Swiftspear, and it charges up the graveyard for Barbarian Ring. So what I'm doing right here is I'm trying to shell out as much damage as possible, because the opponent does have an Ancient Tomb, you know, and we have a couple Barbarian Rings. If we find a Fireblast, you know, like, we could maybe get there against the turn 1 Chalice. Don't love seeing a Sheoldred in their list, but happy that it's under a Chrome Box, but doesn't bode well for us. Alright, so there's Karn. I'm curious about what they're going to get from their wish board. And this is just sort of like an impossible situation. Like, they have a lot of resources, and we have a solitary creature with maybe some prowess triggers. We have the Barbarian Rings, you know, we're working towards. So I'm trying to think. Obviously, we can't kill Karn with the Bolt, you know, but decide just to pump it. And I think if I were able to get one more prowess trigger, I think I would have killed the Karn right there. But I'm just tossing the Harrier out there to fill up the graveyard for Barbarian Ring. So, I mean, the thing is, oh, and this really sucks. So, I guess that's an argument for not playing the Barbarian Ring because of Strip Mine. So the opponent's able to save themselves from those 2 points of burn. And they're going to grab something, and they're just going to get a Vault of Whispers from their wish board. And then we see a Wary Zone Guard. So what I was hoping would happen is that we eventually would find a Fireblast and end them. But Zone Guard is going to strip mine lock us. So, yeah. So, and the thing is, we just found the dang Fireblast. So that is really, really tough. So, I could have killed the Karn there. Like, there was a consideration for that, but I was wondering, like, okay, maybe like they get too overzealous with the life payment, we can get them with Barbarian, you know. So, anyway, like I said, like, we're super close. So we're going to just sack the Barbarian Ring, but the problem is where Zone Guard's going, like, they have ring protection right now, and they're able to start animating their ring. And so I'm still hopeful the opponent, like, makes a mistake and goes too crazy on the life total. But the thing is, like, they're going to be able to keep us off Fireblast the rest of the game with the strip mine lock. And so that is just really, really tough. So Bolt there, like, they have an indestructible blocker. So I'm fast forwarding. The opponent played it super well. They never activated the ring. They kept it as an indestructible blocker. And so we're moving on to the next one. But I feel really good about that because against a turn 1 chalice, like, we got like a near kill. You know, it took a strip mine lock for them to save themselves. Otherwise we would have got them with the Fireblast. So, all right, so opponent's going to Once Upon a Time. I think that's actually a mistake. Like, we're not making them discard, and so they might as well just see what they draw before they Once Upon a Time, you know. But it turns out it's not going to matter. The opponent has Chrome Mox into Dark Ritual, into Balustrade Spy. So they are going to mill themselves and get some Silver Smoke Ghouls and Prized Amalgams. I ended up sticking around with it to see if I could get enough blockers in the way, but no, we're dead. So on to the next one. All right, looks like an artifact deck. Mostly been seeing like Pinnacle Emissary decks, so have to see how this goes. This could get ugly. So gonna lead with the Greasewrench Goblin. Their Opal's already online. They're firing off a Thoughtcast. So, and then there's Ornithopter. Let's see if they have any more follow-ups. Alright, so it seemed like they still had some priority passing going, like they had something they could play. I don't know if they're holding on to zeros for Emissary down the line. Gonna lead with the Mishra's Bauble and trying to figure out what to do. I'm gonna attack with Greasewrench Goblin. They're not blocking. I'm just gonna try and get some damage in. You know, you do have to watch out for like Galvanic Blast, you know, so there is an argument for both. For Chain Lightning the Ornithopter, but decided just with all the Fire Blast we have in hand, like, I really just want to send all the damage upstairs. That was my rationale. Like, it is dangerous to leave extra artifacts in play though. So, all right, Frogmere Enforcer, and I'm forgetting the name. It's like the Cranial Planing clone is in their hand. So now this is why you send the damage upstairs. You know, we have Chain Lightnings, Lightning Bolts, and a couple Fire Blasts locked and loaded. So the opponent is almost dead right here. Like, we have 10 points of damage if we were to like Bolt and Fire Blast as well. So gonna just hang on and see what the opponent does. All right, Thought Monitor. So if we draw another mountain, that's double Fire Blast, and like that's basically it as well. Now you do have to be careful. They do have some stack interaction. Oh yeah, it's Cranial Ram. That's the name. So I'm really hoping they're not like gonna hold up like a Metallic Rebuke right here. Alright, so they're using a Thoughtcast. I'm contemplating bolting in response if in case they go like play like a Mox Opal. So, but yeah, as we bolt them in their face, so let me know in the comments what's your favorite cards that deal direct damage, like Flame Tongue Kavu or Blasphemous Act, Bolt. So we happen to draw the mountain for double Fire Blast. So like I said, this is the card that totally is like a huge upgrade for burn decks. Like, it just basically takes a whole turn off your clock sometimes. So this is a pretty strong hand. It is speculative, but we have turn 1 Swiftspear into Mishra's Bauble. So we're already dealing 2 damage on turn 1. We get another look at an extra card. So pretty happy about that. And a lot of ones in hand anyway. So going to Bauble them on their draw step to see what the card they're drawing for the turn. Alright, it's a Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Alright, into an Ancient Tomb, Chrome Mox. Let's see what the opponent tucks under it. And it's a Blood Moon. So I'll go ahead and link a Blood Moon deck of my own here. It's an archetype I really enjoy playing. So turn 1 Fable from the opponent. So, alright. Now we drew a pair of mountains. So trying to figure out how to handle this. I don't want them like getting a bunch of mana and dumping something crazy into play. We do have to watch out for Fury in this matchup. So I'm going to just play Harrier and Swiftspear and crash in. So also another thing is I don't want the Goblin giving them non-painful mana. Like I want them using the Ancient Tomb. All right, so they're going to bolt in a Shatter Skull, and and then Fiery Confluence. So it makes sense. So they're going to nuke all of our creatures right there. It's a new card we've gotten along with the Vintage Cube. So going to just play a pair of Greasewrench Goblins and just Boltwave them and just say, your go. So they took a ton of damage to Fiery Confluence us, but then we just were right back in it with some more creatures. So, alright, Strip Mine is sort of annoying. Alright, Broadside Bombardiers, which is super strong. It can be like a massive problem if they start copying it with Reflection. So that, alright, so they're going to throw the Chromox at one of our Goblins. Alright, Mountain is unfortunate. So, the clear thing to do here is just to attack and make them scared of like a Lightning Bolt or something like that. So they're going to block. Now Greasewrench only puts one counter on, and we're going to ditch the Mountain, try and find a burn spell. Alright. Now it's a Barbarian Ring, but they have active Strip Mine, so I'm definitely not going to play. I'm going to hold on to it for later, protect the Barbarian Ring. Alright, so they're going to play Ragavan. The thing is, Bombardiers can shell out so much damage that we don't have a lot of time right here. Alright, so they found a Monstrous Rage. I'm surprised they used the treasure on that, because it's just going to give it trample, and like with the treasure they could sacrifice it to Bombardiers, and we happen to draw the perfect card, so we can activate Barbarian Ring and just Fireblast them. Like I said, like this deck is actively good with Fireblast. Like it's really, really strong. Like you can just end games so quickly. So we take them down. Now, I actually built a non-Lightning Bolt version and recorded a bunch of these, and then learned that Lightning Bolt was downshifted from rare, so it's actually like a budget card. I was really like hyper-focused on making this a 0 rares deck to see if it could be done. So what I'm going to do is run through the highlights of those non-Bolt games right here. So this is us just slapping around a scam deck. Moving on to the next game against Jeskai Control. This one is obviously not going nearly as well as that last one. But I wanted to show these highlights because I had the footage, and like this deck is the same as the other one, like except, you know, with some lesser burn spells subbed in for Lightning Bolt. And you could see like we're still battling in these games even without Lightning Bolt, you know. So this is against a burn mirror right here, and this lasted a while. Like we were behind like for like the whole game, but now like once like the dust settled, we're just gonna absolutely like just clobber them with like 1,000,000 damage right here. And you could see the power of Monastery Swiftspear. Like it leads to these like hyper explosive turns where you're like, you know, fire blasting them to death and stuff. This one didn't go well. This was against an Eldrazi deck. They have a Shadow Spear gaining life, and I'm like, can it get worse than this? Turns out it can get worse from this. They're gonna hard cast Emrakul, and we are super dead in that game. This was against Show and Tell, and they're setting it up right here with Mastermind's Acquisition. Very strange Ugin under the Chromox over there. Don't know what's going on with that, but had to math out to make sure we got lethal here, but it's not too hard to find. You just Monstrous Rage the Swiftspear, Chain Lightning them to the dome for exact 9 damage, getting around them, probably Show and Telling and Atraxa into play. So taking down Show and Tell is always nice. This game, I'm going to have a little bit more runway for this game because there's some interesting decision points. So I actually play a lot of colorless, I call it colorless Super Friends, you know, so that's what we're playing against right now. We got Kozilek's Commands, we got Ugin Eye of Storms under Ugin's Labyrinth, you know. So this is a critical turn because, you know, they have a ton of blockers and a ton of mana available. Now, me being the pilot of the colorless deck so many times, I know that the magic number for that deck is 7. That's like what their Ugin Eye of Storms is, and you know, like the Devourer of Destiny. Like there's a lot of really strong 7s that they have. So I'm concerned about them having that much mana. Now Fireblast on top is super clutch. That could help us like go the distance even through all these blockers potentially. So going to Chain Lightning them to the dome and then attack in with the Swiftspears. And I'm very curious like how cautious they're going to play it. Now you could see one of the lesser burn spells that I had before Lightning Bolt is Wild Slash, you know. So they're going to block with each of these, and I'm just confirming like just making sure. Now the thing is, with their mana sources right now, the opponent has 5 mana plus the spawn, and so the decision now is, do we pop the spawn to help them? So basically, if they have another soul land, then yeah, they're going to get to 7. But if they don't have another soul land, they won't be able to get to 7 and start gaining life, or possibly like sweeping our creatures, you know, because they could have Ugin the Spirit Dragon also. And it turns out they do not have another soul land, so they're going to play the Forsaken Monument, take some damage off the Ancient Tomb, and then allows us to line up the kill right here. So going to play Greasewrench Goblin for like due diligence, but yeah, like if we attack in with these and Fireblast them, the prowess triggers on the Swiftspears are going to end it. So now I guess they could cast a Kozilek's Command to gain 2 life off the Forsaken Monument and survive, but then they're locked out of Ancient. Yeah, so we take down the Colorless Eldrazi deck and are in the middle of another Burn Mirror in this one. Just annihilating the Burn Mirrors right here. So this is risky going to well, 7's much better than 6 against Burn, you know. So let's see how the opponent responds. Like, we have like a ton of damage in the air right now. So, all right, Static Discharge, no Fireblast from the opponent. So this is going to be a clean kill right here. So, and you can see how clutch Barbarian Ring has been in so many of these situations. Like, this is going to allow us to finish them off right here before they could kill us, you know. So I think it is a worthwhile inclusion. Now this is against life gain. We've already taken care of a pair of Ocelot Prides. The thing is, this Path to Exile is not going to go good for the opponent. As you can see, like, multiple Fire Blasts in our hand right here. So, and this turn, like, we have it all. I think this is our turn 3 because they Path to Exiled us up to an extra land. And so even against life gain, like, they just can't keep up with like this assault. Like, you know, it's hard for them to set up their engines against what we're doing. So we can literally do it all right here. So we're going to attack in. The opponent's not going to block. We can, you know, pump up the Greasewrench Goblin. Even if they did block, it didn't matter. So I'm not going to discard anything. We can Monstrous Rage one of our creatures and then double Fire Blast them. You know, so this is like 16 damage right here on turn 3, you know. So this is the power of Burn with Fire Blast and going to just end the game. Well, that was pretty strong, and this deck is like super fun to play, like really explosive, and as you could see, it could win a whole lot. Like, I didn't keep an exact count, but I think between the pre and post Lightning Bolt versions, I think it went like 14 and 6 or so, which is like a pretty dang good win rate. So, and this just shows that you can compete in Timeless without any rares at all. Like, this deck has what it takes, and the MVP of the deck is Fireblast. Like, it's just crazy. It really like elevates this deck's game plan, and like, just like I said, takes like a whole turn off your clock sometimes. Like, it is just super strong. Barbarian Ring was also clutch in many situations, but there is tension with, like, you know, Mountains versus Barbarian Ring, so I don't think I'd stray much further than this. Like, maybe you can get the 3rd ring in there, but then you run the risk of not hitting your Fire Blast on time, you know. So I like this core. I think the creatures that are like really like uncuttable are Monastery Swiftspear and Dragon's Rage Channeler. The ones that are definitely like upgradable are like Greasewrench Goblin and Harrier. I consider Harrier the weakest among these, because like the rummaging and like the growing like is actually pretty useful on Greasewrench Goblin. So if you have the Ragavans, like, you could upgrade like the Harriers, or like, you know, you could play around with like different ones in there. You know, there's like, there's Gitu Lava Runner if you're interested in that. There's like Ozempic Charles Barkley, but there's different ways you could go. So as far as upgrade paths, honestly, I don't think this deck sort of like needs any upgrades. Like, it's already just strong as is. But if you wanted to sort of morph into a different strategy, you could go towards, like, start with this and then move towards Blue-Red Delver by adding some like blue draw spells and like fetch lands and shock lands as you get them, and like, you know, maybe not Delver itself, you know, but you can get Spell Pierces and stuff going on there, Expressive Iteration, you know. So there's that's a direction you can go. You could also go towards like an artifact burn deck, and that's one I've played before. I'll go ahead and link it in the description, but that's one that uses like Legion Extruders and Quarry Steel Cutters, and Legion Extruder can like really grind out games. Honestly, this deck could benefit from Quarry Steel Cutter. Like, if you have them, just toss them in there and try it out, because it's also cracked with Fire Blast, because you can tap out for some stuff, then Fire Blast and get the 2nd trigger, and then all of a sudden you get another Monk token, and the prowess is going off. So If you have them, throw them in there. Like maybe just replace the Harriers with Core Steel colors, and you're off to the races. Another direction you can go is sort of like red-black burn, or like heading towards like red-black, like Luris mid-range. Like if you can get some Bowmasters in there, and like Fatal Pushes or like Inquisitions, then all of a sudden you have more mileage against the like combo decks if you have Thoughtseize and Inquisitions, or even Duresses, like as to start off with. So, but I think this is a super fun and strong deck, and if you're interested, you should try it out. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you want to see even more nonsense, please consider subscribing. And if you're already subscribed, thank you for your support. Your engagement with the channel helps me know what the people want. Thank you.